If you're sick of everything being so freaking expensive and just getting more and more expensive, and then also tired of pulling your hair out trying to figure out how to save money while also getting the most bang for your buck, well, let me help you out as best I can because, well, I don't have any hair to pull out, and honestly, you're kind of in luck right now. The market is getting more and more competitive, and there's actually a lot of good value options starting to show their face amongst all the dust now that it's settling after the shortages. Two of the most sought after budget-friendly GPUs are the RTX 3060 and then the RX 6600 non-XT. Now that may surprise some of you, but what's actually more surprising is how competitive they really truly are when you take all factors under consideration. Now you're probably like, okay, fine. So what's the specs difference? What's the cost difference? What's the performance comparison? And what's gonna work best for my streaming setup or even my workstation, video editing, etc. We're gonna cover all that and a few surprises you may or even may not like with both of these in this video. What's up guys, my name is Juan and you're watching my channel Blueprint PC. And money is tight these days, and if you're like me, you want to know as much as you can before you make any purchase in order to get the most bang for your buck out of that purchase, because honestly, nobody likes wasting money. The used GPU market is pretty well flooded, and this is actually helping bring prices down across the used and new market. And the dust hasn't settled quite yet, but this is starting to allow us to see some of the value options that we missed out on during the shortages. Now, both these GPUs perform rather well, and I do have separate videos if you want to get a deeper dive on each of those. But while they do perform rather competitively against each other, there are some glaring differences between these two. Let's start with one of the most controversial and most standout issues between these two, and that is the price. The RX 6600 non-XT ranges anywhere from like $225, $250 for most models, and does tick up from there, crossing over $300. The RTX 3060, however, tends to start around $300. Now these are new prices, and this will climb up to $400 and even above that depending on where you're shopping. Now that is a huge difference, and the question you have to ask yourself is, what kind of GPU do you need? What are you going to use it for? And is the cost difference worth the trade-offs? Let's do a quick overview here. So similarities, they both do ray tracing and they're both PCIe Gen 4. And that's about where the similarities end. While this is PCIe Gen 4 across 16, this is Gen 4 across 8. So if you're running a 3.0 motherboard or processor, you're going to notice a big performance difference there. The RTX 3060 has 12 gigabytes of GDDR6 VRAM. Yes, there is a lower model out there. Just ignore that model. Don't even talk about it because I'm not going to, because it is kind of just a money grab from NVIDIA. But anyway, so when this first came out, that seemed kind of like a weird kind of marketing move from NVIDIA, like who the hell needs 12 gigabytes of VRAM on a 1080p card? Well, the RX 6600 non-XT only has 8 gigabytes of GDDR6 VRAM. And honestly, right now, I think NVIDIA kind of gets an accidental win there because with newer games demanding more and more VRAM because of lack of optimization, that's kind of a win. Another area the RTX 3060 is kind of winning in is they're on their second generation of their ray tracing cores, while AMD is only on their first. Now, mind you, neither of these are going to be a beast at ray tracing, but if you do want to try it, you do want to turn it on, the RTX 3060 is going to do better with ray tracing. One area AMD has been exceeding in for some time now is the overall cost of ownership, not just the initial purchase price, but the actual long-term costs, because AMD, their cards tend to sip a little bit less power, where NVIDIA seems to be taking some cues from Intel and just cramming more voltage into the card, trying to get every ounce of performance out of it. So AMD will not only save you money up front, but over time from a lower electric bill, and on top of the fact that most of their cards tend to be a lower overall maximum wattage needed, that actually allows you to save money on your power supply and buy a smaller power supply. NVIDIA does strike back with some of that value though, because they do offer their more mature DLSS along with rebar and a whole bunch of other software components that they do provide. Now, mind you, AMD is not taking that sitting down. AMD is hard at work dishing out a ton, I mean a ton. Go check out their website of new software and just different options that they're providing. Mind you, a lot of these are still in their initial releases, so they're not going to be as refined, but it's a good sign to see that AMD is starting to basically say, hey, you're doing this, we'll do it too. So that's a good sign for competition, and that'll kind of get into more of that what you may need to use your card for, where AMD is going to start having that compatibility that once only belonged strictly to NVIDIA. Keep along the same topic now, if you do intend to stream, video edit, do graphics design, etc., you can pretty much assume that most applications are going to work with NVIDIA. Now, mind you, like I just said, AMD is starting to catch up and become more and more compatible, albeit because it is still in the early stages. AMD cards are going to perform less efficiently at those specific tasks. After the benchmarks, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into when you should buy which specific card and actually throw out a few alternative options depending on what your use case is. Quick note, I do have what I call the average gamer's test bench. I do my tests at low, medium, and high default settings, no tweaks or adjustments. If you want to know more about what I do and why I built my test bench the way I did, there'll be a link in the description below for you to check out. Now that you've seen the benchmarks, I'm sure most of you already assume that the RTX 3060 would outperform the RX 6600. Now, mind you, it was not a bloodbath. It was actually pretty competitive. And when you consider how far apart they are on price, you really have to start to wonder, what do I need my GPU for? If you're strictly gaming, the RX 6600 is probably all you're really gonna need. Now, if you're doing more than that, that's where it starts to get interesting. Like I mentioned before, both these cards are going to pretty much be able to do any task. Now, but if you're doing streaming, or if you're doing video editing, or if you're doing graphics design, time is something that you don't have a lot of, so you need to be efficient, and that's where NVIDIA is going to exceed. While AMD may be able to do those, it's just not going to do it well. And on top of that, that 12 gigabytes of VRAM is going to come in huge for any of those. Now, let's say you absolutely have to stick with Team Green, but you want to spend this kind of money. What do you do? Well, here's where my alternatives come into play. You can look at something like the RTX 3050. You're going to spend the same amount of money as you would as a 6600 non-X, but here's the problem. Same money, you're losing a ton of performance off the 3060. On top of that, it's going to force you to want to upgrade sooner because of that lack of performance. Will it still be compatible with all the software? Yes. Does it still do ray tracing? Technically, yes, but it may not be the best route. Now, let's say you're willing to spend the same amount of money as this, but you just want gaming. What do you look at? Well, you can again stick with Team Red and look at something like this, the RX 6700 XT. They're averaging upper 200s to middle 3s depending on the version, depending on where you buy it from, but you'll get a butt ton more performance with this versus either of these two cards, and you'll still have that ability to dabble with some graphics design, video editing, and streaming shouldn't be really a big option for any of these, but it's just one of those things where you'll have a little bit more of a buffer room for performance with this guy versus either of these. And this is also 12 gigabytes along with this. So just another, food for thought to consider, as again, I wouldn't recommend this just because that's just it's gonna be a soon upgrade. You're just gonna have to upgrade that too soon for it to be valuable. So if you don't feel any of these options are quite right for you, and you wanna check out another set of competitive GPUs, check out my video right here for the RTX 3070 versus the RX 6700 XT. And do me a favor, guys, please hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one.